Welcome to the Agency Uplift podcast, where we go past the highlight reel and dig into what actually builds a strong agency. Clear foundations, better decisions, and the courage to scale on purpose. I'm your host, Sean Lang, co-founder of Social Commerce Club and advisor to agency owners. And today I'm here with Brett Friedman, founder of the Creative Strategy Agency. Now, the Creative Strategy Agency delivers creatives that drive performance, pairing thoughtful strategy, high-volume briefs with high-impact ads to fuel growth that's fast, flexible, and fun. Brett, great to have you back. This is Brett's second time on the show. He is our very first repeat guest. I think you were on episode 3. I'd have to check.
Something like that. Yeah. Thank you for having me back. That was a wonderful introduction.
I'm feeling a little lightheaded because I didn't take any breaths, and that was a lot of air to expel from one long run sentence.
I'll try to condense my copy on my website in the future. I don't use enough AI for editing, actually. It's just for generation. So.
And that's going to dovetail perfectly into our conversation. No, so I wanted to have Brett back on the show because I don't know if any of you follow Brett on LinkedIn, and if you don't, you should. Brett Friedman, look him up. So Brett runs this awesome creative strategy agency, and I haven't seen anyone doing nearly as interesting things with AI in the creative space as you are, Brett.
Thank you. It's really kind of you.
I'm a really kind guy. So, I mean, this is going to be kind of like a choose your own adventure episode. Typically, we go through your story. We've already done that. We already know everything there is to know about you, Brett. So we're not going to ask you any questions about yourself. We're just going to what's something that's really, really interesting in terms of AI, automation, ideation, et cetera, that you've been having fun with lately, that the audience can A, understand and wrap their head around, and B, maybe actually go out and try for themselves?
Yeah. So one thing that I think people tend to underuse that is really, really amazing about all the LLMs is that they understand an extremely broad range of information and types of information. Meaning, you can go to Wikipedia, find a list of all the academic disciplines in the world, drop them into an LM like GPT, and say, hey, I want to understand the perspective of the people in all these academic fields. And I guarantee you, because you don't know everything about the universe like it does, that you will find new information. So this is the starting point where I'm going to lead into a lot of things that are obviously a lot more advertising and career strategy related. But I want to start there because it's a really important point. And I think once you get used to using the chatbots to give you perspectives that you couldn't already have, it will unlock a huge amount of creative work that you would not have been able to get to, because most people, including myself, are always very focused on their own perspective and all their own experience. And even in our custom instructions in the apps, we typically say, hey, I'm an advertiser, or I run an agency, like talk to me as if I'm that person. But you can get a lot more value if, rather than that, you say, talk to me like you're an exercise physiologist, or talk to me like you're really, really into Dungeons and Dragons, because you're going to get these completely different perspectives. So I'll pause there for 1 second.
That's really interesting, and that's also one of the things that I love about talking to you, Brett, is you take this sort of very high level view of we're not just looking at the nuts and bolts of the inputs and the outputs, but there's also the broader, like the why and the how and the philosophy behind it. I think that's super cool. So when you're ideating and coming up with new creative in an AI tool, for example, or using an LLM to help, are you actually giving it a specific role rather than just using it as ChatGPT or Claude or what have you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Claude is actually even better, I think, in most cases than GPT, because you can set a style. And in those style instructions, which are kind of like micro custom instructions, so you set the system to do and talk to you however you want. In simple terms, you just say, like, hey, talk to me like I'm an exercise physiologist, or talk to me like you, the LM, are an exercise physiologist. And then you can lock that in as a style, select that so that it always uses that like base setting. And then when you put in your prompt, it will use that as a background. So it can pull from knowledge bases and expertise that you don't have. And then, for example, if I'm looking at an ad account and I'm looking at ad performance, anything that I ask, even if I'm just saying, hey, I want to check out, how did we perform in our prospecting campaign versus retargeting last week, pull the top 5 ad performance, it's going to respond with that normal data like it would, but then have this weird lens of exercise physiology, which, to be honest, I don't know enough about to be able to say whether or not there's going to be relevant connections or not. But there might be. It will probably see, that account like a human body, perhaps, and use sports metaphors and things like that to describe to you the data in ways that might unlock insights that you can actually action on, because that's obviously what we're always looking for, that you would not have gotten otherwise. So that's kind of step 2.
Super cool and super interesting. Yeah, sometimes it'll interpret, like, did you say it'll interpret the ad account like the human body?
Yeah. I mean, that's my guess of what would happen if you ask it to be an exercise physiologist.
It's really funny because I have encountered weirdness like that. I'm like, it's not really what I wanted, but I've never thought about it that way. How can I integrate this? I probably can't. But so what's a really actionable thing that you think that everyone should be doing? Like, not at Brett level, but even at just base level. What's something that every agency that has anything to do with the creative process whatsoever should be doing?
Yeah, so this is a little higher level and might pertain to agencies in general and even personal lives. But you can build projects in the LMs, and a project allows you to upload as much information as you want as context, and similarly set your own custom instructions. And one thing you can do with that is you can say, hey, here's all my financial data, if you're comfortable doing this. Here's all my financial data, build me a quick dashboard, and then you can talk to it every single day. So you can say, hey, here's what happened today. We signed this client, or this client churned, or hey, we had a winning ad and our variable revenue, has just doubled. Like, help me, understand what are next steps I can take to keep pushing that number, or oh wow, I didn't realize we were losing money here because it's done this analysis and it's seen, hey, did you realize you're still subscribed to these 5 apps that you haven't touched in months and should churn from? So that's maybe more general for all agencies, and even again, if you're comfortable with it in your personal life, like you can upload your recent financial statements. Now, again, like I know Sam Altman was just saying how they will use in courts of law anything that you upload, and they have to retain all their chats, and even if you delete them or it's temporary, they're still retaining that data. So you don't have to use financial data. You can also anonymize it. You can use estimates. Like there are other parts of your business, of course, like operations, for example, where you can track all your actions. If you have Asana integrates with both Claude and GPT. Notion integrates with both Claude and GPT. So what I've done, for example, with Notion is I have a huge dashboard of our progress in all different kinds of areas in the business. So how many ads are we making? How many ideas go into each of those ads? How are we selecting the ideas that we end up producing? Which ads are actually top performers? Which ones fail? And we have a Notion board for each of these things. And then we have projects for all of our clients and for ourselves where we can just type in, hey, here's what happened today. Here's all the tasks that we did. Asana can kind of pipe in, okay, here's some tasks that you did, and then we can display that. And so you can build these systems that make it really easy to see what's going on in your business, and they're not hard to build. I mean, when I first built the first dashboard in Notion, I was just like excited that Notion was integrated with them. I was like, hey, can you just build me a dashboard, just see what happens? And it was like, yeah, sure, like give me access to all these pages. And I gave it access to all these pages, and it's like, all right, cool. And then it just built a dashboard in probably a way I wouldn't have thought to do it, because I'm not incredibly ops minded. I'm much more on the like creative and data side. So that would be the number one recommendation. Like, give it access to your ops and if you're willing, your financials as well.
So you brought up the feature of projects. Now, maybe I was a little bit early. Maybe I was doing it wrong, but I think maybe I was just early. When projects first rolled out, I got really excited because I was like, oh, this will actually go beyond the limitations currently of custom GPTs, where you can only feed it so much data, and then I think 20 files is the limit or something like that. I mean, now we can go around that with like a reg setup or something like that. But with projects, I started to build out a bunch of projects, and I found that it kept on pulling in contexts from stuff outside of the project, and so I stopped using projects. I was like, this is useless to me. Have you ever experienced that, or was that maybe just like a glitch from the early days of projects?
It definitely does that. I had not found it to be an issue because I appreciate when it pulls in like relevant context, but I do get what you're saying. If you want it to be a closed system where it's like only referring to those documents that you've uploaded, then it could be challenging. I don't think it solved that problem. I'm sorry to say.
Bummer. Okay. A little random aside, but I was scrolling LinkedIn, as I do multiple times a day, and a previous guest on this podcast, Dmitry Fisenko. He runs an ad agency and also a white label media buying agency. And he was saying that he used Claude MCP, the something context model. Was it?
Model context protocol, I think.
Protocol, yeah. And he connected that to Airtable, and then he was able to ask Claude to build him out all of these dashboards within Airtable with all of the dependencies and linkages and formulas, and then he fed in his spreadsheets and it populated the data. And I was thinking, this is wild. The kinds of things that now like we can do it, and I've stopped trying to catch up. I don't even try to anymore. I'm just focused on fundamentals, and then when somebody builds something really awesome like that, I'm like, sick. But now let's get into like the creatives, Brett. Your bread and butter. Walk me through something awesome.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is most exciting about creative right now is that the ability to generate thousands of high quality, high variety ideas is getting easier and easier. And production is also getting easier and more varied. So there were previously it was very hard to create the kinds of concepts that are high fantasy, like high concept, really out there, branded even, but the kinds of things that you really only see in TV or studio shoots that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, everyone has already made this point of content production getting cheaper, but the thing that I think is particularly interesting is that it allows an amount of variety that was impossible before. So as an example, especially early in my brief writing days, I would write briefs without any kind of sense of the cost of production. I would be like, oh, I had this great idea. I had this amazing idea. Like, this guy is going to jump off the Empire State Building and he's going to be caught by a surfboard, and that surfboard is going to like fly him over the ocean, and then we're going to see like a logo pop up for the brand that we're selling surfboards with. Obviously, that was a completely ridiculous idea, and to be able to figure out how to do that with any kind of talent would be exorbitant, to say the least. Even animating that would be very expensive. Now I can pop that exact thing into VO3, and it's going to give me a thing that's close to good immediately, and after a couple iterations, I'll probably get exactly what I want. So that's the kind of variety that I'm talking about, where there are concepts that we have access to now. Another great example of that are visual metaphors. So it's not just the variety in the visuals themselves, but visual metaphor is very important with creative. Oftentimes the messaging is what does the job to drive performance, but you always want the visual behind that messaging to actually match the copy so you get performance. Previously, you had to figure out some way, especially if you're using any kind of figurative language. Quite often in health and wellness, for example, you can't always say things directly. So sometimes it can be very hard to like show what's going on in the ad to match the messaging. Now, whatever you're talking about, it can be skincare, it can be healthcare, it can be food and beverage, it can be things that affect your body, it can be things that don't. Any kind of product, any kind of metaphor that you want to use, you can just immediately like visualize. So I think that's another really exciting part of where the tech is moving that I think is underappreciated. Like, I haven't really heard too many people talking about the breadth of what's possible now.
Yeah, that's super true. Now you said something at the start. I don't remember specifically, but something to do with like the messaging was the most critical part, and we weren't able to match the visual to it. But now we can, and where my mind goes right off the bat is, okay, so right now we're kind of in this weird middle zone where some people are using it effectively, so there are some really, really good AI ads being made right now. But now my mind fast forwards to 1 or 2 months from now, and every single ad is going to be really, really good. And then it goes back to, okay, so the messaging is still the most important thing, because now what happens when everyone has Super Bowl quality ads is nobody has Super Bowl quality ads anymore, because it's the same thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually, counterintuitive to what I do for a living, I think it's a better world we live in where all the ads are really, really top tier. Everything's running is great. People enjoy consuming them. They are able to find the things they actually want to purchase, the things that they connect with, that they identify with. Because what happens is that there's a turn towards product and product development. and product development speeds up, and everyone focuses on having the best product. Because if everyone can market their products well, then all that matters is having a differentiated product, because the speaking about it, the communicating about it, the telling people about it, it becomes much easier, right? It's becoming more effective. So of course there are like operations around that. I think growth strategy is still very important. I think the forecasting and deciding what channels you're on, determining the strategy of which thing do we launch now. There's essentially an infinite set of ads that you can make. Choosing which one to make, I think, is something that is still challenging for the LLMs. At least there hasn't been an app that has solved this problem. And I think even if you load all of your data in the future in which the LLMs have infinite context and infinite memory, I think it's still a hard problem to solve, especially without any hallucinations. So I see the movements mostly towards product development, and then strategy is always going to be very important.
Strategy, and that's what you guys do at the Creative
Yeah.
Strategy Agency. For context, I mean, I introduced the agency, but for context, why don't you walk the audience through a little bit more about how you guys approach this?
Yeah, so we try to look at a business, in what we will do is take what the growth strategy is saying that they want to do right now. So maybe you want to increase revenue, maybe you want to increase profit. Most people want to do both at the same time. Okay, what do we have to do? Well, we have to lower our acquisition cost, and we want to increase volume and scale in the ad account. Cool. How do we do that? Well, let's look at all the things that are in the ad account right now. What have you ever run historically? What are you running now? What are your ads that have driven 80% of the performance? So not everyone knows this, but there's a power law that drives all performance in at least meta ad accounts, meaning that 20% of your ads, really it's usually more like 10% of your ads, drive 80 to 90% of all performance. So those are of course the ads that you want to analyze. You don't want to over-index on them. One, because churning out variants of those things is not going to get you more and more performance. It might get you business as usual. You need new concepts to get new performance. But B, because a lot of times there's a huge part of chance involved. Something just gets a ton of comments and it starts scaling because it got a ton of comments and engagement. It could be something arbitrary. Like, for example, we had an ad that went viral just because the talent that we chose had a crazy mustache. And everyone was just like, wow, look at this guy's crazy mustache. Oh, you know what? I do kind of want that product. Right? So there are things like that are hard to replicate and control for. But generally, that's the kind of exploit strategy. So you look at everything that's ever been run, look at the top performers. Okay, we'll do some variants of those. And then importantly, you want to not do all of the things that didn't do well unless you see some kind of signal that you can get out of it. And then you want to look at the set of competitors and what they're running, and then find the gaps. So this is something we really, really focus on, which is if you want to scale an ad account, you need to continue to find new audiences for your product or launch new products. If you're not launching new products, and most people that hire an agency like us, they have their product set, they want to scale with just the products that they have. Oh, our ads aren't that good, or we're not scaling how we'd like to. We want to lower acquisition costs. Okay, how can we figure that out? We're going to look at everything that we can possibly launch. There's nearly an infinite amount of those things, and then we're going to take a slice of those and say, based on what the competitors are doing, based on what you're doing, based on the audiences that exist for your product, we're going to try and attack this group with this kind of creative that we think will connect with them. And that's essentially all that strategy is. You're making those choices, and then the fun part is that they don't actually really need to work immediately, right? It's a learning process. So because of that 10 to 20% that are going to drive all the performance, you get to test and test and test, and that's a calculable thing as well. So if you've run 100 ads before, and 2 of them are driving 80 to 90% of the performance, okay, cool. Let's launch another 100 ads because we're probably going to get 1 or 2 more winners. Obviously, there's some marginal decline that happens as you go on over time, but most brands aren't running the maximum, which is around 25,000 ads that you can run in the ad account. So
25,000, yeah. I'd like to meet the media buyer handling that account, or the 500 media buyers. So when you're running 100 ads and then you're getting, say, 2 or 3 winners out of it, and then you're running another 100 ads, are you basing those new 100 off of the 2 to 3 winners previous, or are you looking for completely new winners out of a completely new batch of concepts?
Yeah. So every account, we will look at performance, see what the current split of net new concepts that are getting launched is versus variants, and then typically we'll match that if we think it's performing well, Or if there's a lack of performance, which is often the case when you come to an agency, we will explore more. So we might make 90 or even close to 100% of the new concepts net new, meaning they're not based on the current ads that are in account. We're still going to take insights from there. We're still going to use the things that we think are evergreen or like branded differentiation that we know no other brand has, because those are probably still going to be relevant. So we will take elements, but oftentimes you have a brand and they just want to scale and they can't figure out what's wrong with their ad account. We're exclusively going to test. And part of what we do when we work with new brands or onboard clients is we'll do a big messaging test and a big audience test. Meaning the messaging test, we are actively, exclusively trying to find new angles that are going to perform in the ad account, that are things that they have not tested before ever in the lifetime of their ad account, and their competitors are not currently testing. So we're trying to find these net new angles. And then based on that performance, we will do more exploitation, you might call it. And the same idea with the audience test. We're going to generate as many audiences as we can, figure out which ones we think are not being targeted, and then we're going to go after those audiences.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how big of a factor right now is all of your AI experimentation playing in this process?
Yeah, so it certainly helps a lot. There's this great like pyramid of value props that I have to reference Taylor at Common Thread, because I think he showed it to me. But Bain did this research where they factor analyzed like every value prop of every brand ever, something along those lines, and it came down to like 30 in D2C and 40 in B2B. And what's really useful with AI is that you can take something like that, you can drop it into an LLM, and you could say, hey, here's my brand. Here are the things that are their real value props. Here's how they differentiate. Here's their brand guidelines. Here's all the context you need about this brand, and here's all the context about this product. Real quick, tell me like how would you angle these 30 value props for them? And bang, you have like a super lightweight messaging test. And I promise you, like one of those is a new angle. Now, of course, they've probably tested a lot of those already. You need to go and see what they've tested. Of course, their competitors might already be spamming that angle, and they're winning with that angle, so it's going to be a competitive space. But you will almost certainly find some angle that is not being targeted. Same thing with audiences. So as I was saying earlier, you can grab a list from Wikipedia of all of the academic disciplines. You can also grab a list of all the hobbies that exist, all the occupations that exist, all the different ways that you can slice audiences and identities. You can drop into an LM and say, hey, here's my brand, here's all the context. Which of these is at all even a little bit relevant? Tell me how big that audience is. Let me get a stack rank of how effective you think our ads will be if we target these people. Are there competitors targeting them? You go through all of these kind of evaluative measures, and then at the end, you'll have a set of 5, 10, 20 audiences, 5, 10, 20 angles, and I promise you, like one of them is going to be a winner.
You're literally like a mad scientist when it comes to AI being deployed for creative iteration. I think your approach is so interesting, so much better than a lot of the N8N workflows that I see people posting on LinkedIn.
On N8N.
I think we're all we're all collectively getting fatigued by the N8N workflow bros.
I mean, like it is an impressive technology. I think that it automates very small sets of workflows, and the output is hard to control. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to control, and yet, so you're generating a huge volume of output that's hard to control. So then it begs the question: did this add any value at all, or are you now just wasting the time that you gained earlier by now sifting through and trying to figure out where the cream is versus the rest of the stuff?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's even in the process that I just described, the human element is still extremely important in the curation. And I think a lot of the NAN flows, there's no curation that's happening until the end. And if you wait until the end after it's gone through several steps, several LLMs, several generation processes, it's usually not the best content that comes out. And if you were to just go through the steps yourself, or someone on your team goes through the steps themselves, the output will probably be better. And of course you can use LLMs, along the way. It's just, I think the full automation is not quite there yet. And then it's not integrated. So one of the biggest issues with the NAN flows is they're all single file tasks. In the same way that you often have silos within an agency where you have, your design team and your creative team and your media buyers, like they're all kind of in their own worlds. The same thing happens with these tasks. So you set up a task workflow. Okay, you have some creative workflow, and then you have some media buying workflow, and then you have some design workflow, and they're only tiny little slivers of each of those workflows, and then to stitch them all together, you might end up wasting more time and having lower quality output. So yeah, I think that's not to say that tech will not improve, and that as the LMs improve, all the output will be better and better. But yeah, I think that the solution to that is that you can custom code your own software now very easily, even if you're not technically savvy. And I think this is the important point, and one of the other big pros of AI is you can jump on Lovable, you can jump on Cursor, you can try Claude Code, although maybe that's a little more technical. But essentially, you can ask in natural language, like, hey, I'm trying to write better briefs. Can you help me build an app that will help me write better briefs? And maybe it's great, maybe it's terrible, but it can make that app for you. So then you can start to tweak it little piece by piece. Oh, okay, I see you made this decision. I didn't really like that. Oh, okay, you know what? When I brief, this is actually what I do. And so you can custom build your own software that is tailored to the way that you do work. And I think that is the best thing that you can do for yourself, because one, you can integrate it with your full process. You know personally what you do every single day, right? You know all your steps. It's not some LinkedIn guru who's telling you what the steps are. You have your own process. You can build software around that process perfectly how you like to do it. And then you can iterate on it and get better and better over time, because the same way that you built it, you can ask it to make changes. So as you realize, oh, you know what, actually when I do this, it's kind of a blocker. Like I didn't realize how much this is blocking me. Could you do this? Could we do it this way? Yeah, okay. And it just updates like that. So that's it, at least with where things are currently at. I think that's the best solution for folks.
I definitely agree, and I think I will eventually change my view on this, but everything that you just said and all the current developments just consistently reinforces that the idea of the AI agent, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Yes, you can really, really accomplish some very, very impressive things start to finish with an AI agent. But when it comes to something, client related, strategy, etc., I still think that I want people on the team managing the AI as a tool in a specific step, rather than the AI making all these strategic decisions and cultural decisions and potentially client experience affecting decisions from start to finish. So I'd much rather have somebody who knows what we do, gets what we do, is a cultural fit, and can kind of make judgments, like human-based judgments based on this is what we're going to do, here's why we're going to do it. Then I'll hand that off to an AI step, which can then give me maximum output for that step, and then I'm going to take it back, and I'm still going to own the outcome. I mean, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to me still than just automating an entire workflow from start to finish. I think you add AI to the spots in the steps where you're like, I really want to maximize output, but I still want the heart and the soul of whoever is actually driving this process involved, because at the end of the day, we're trying to enable selling at the end of the day, and selling is emotional, and selling is humans buying stuff from hopefully humans. I mean, maybe not for much longer. So it's a huge tension in my brain here.
Yeah, I agree. I think also taste is something that you can have help with if you're very junior, if you feel like you aren't certain what the best thing is, you aren't certain what's going to work. The test and see how it went and then iterate process is long and arduous, and I think that's where you actually get value from, is by testing over and over again. But if you don't have time for that, you got a deadline you got to hit, or if you're just not sure, you just don't have experience yet, the easy hack is to say, okay, I don't have taste, I think this person does. So I will co-opt their taste, meaning as an example, okay, we know that these ads are top performers, or we think they're top performers because they got, they've been longest running on foreplay or whatever. And so I'm going to take these 10 ads, I'm going to drop them in and say, okay, based on these 10 ads, develop a taste. Okay, now curate all my ideas and tell me which ones I should run. Right? There's at least hacks that you can use, but ultimately, I think taste comes from your experience of either testing and learning directly, or training on top performing ads. So if you're fortunate enough to work at an agency, I think everyone who watches this probably agency adjacent at least. And if you're not, go work for an agency. If you're early in your career, you're going to learn a lot. You have access to lots and lots of data, right? Lots of brands. Go look through all of your clients ever and look at the top performing ads. Train your taste on that, because you can be certain that those are top performing ads. Whereas when you're looking at the longest running things, or you're looking at what people are posting, God forbid, and basing your taste on that, you just don't know. But there's this great idea about believability from this guy Cedric Chin. Really, I think it's actually from Ray Dalio. But he talks about the idea of believability is just like having expertise in a thing, like provably so. So like you've succeeded in whatever this thing is, your topic, say advertising. You succeeded 3 times. So you've made 3 ads that are winning ads, disproportionate winners, right? They are in that 10 to 20%. You've made 3 ads yourself. You can describe how you were able to pull that off in excruciating detail, the entire system that you have. And then when questioned about it, you can kind of create stories and like answer. So if you can find people that are like that, which I imagine kind of is what your podcast is finding folks that are believable, who are running agencies and have succeeded in whatever the thing that their agency does, you can at least try and co-opt their taste. And one of the other great things about LMs is you can go and just say, hey, this guy, Brett G. Friedman, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about with creative. Can you help me like use his taste for creating my ads? Now, I'm not saying you should do that, but again, like there are plenty of ways of training your taste that will give you a huge advantage in the AI world. As everyone starts to generate tons and tons of garbage, you will be able to look at things and say, oh no, actually that's garbage, or yeah, you think that's garbage, but you're wrong. This one's actually a winner. So I think that's really, really, really important to focus on. And the last thing before I turn it back to you, because I am kind of ranting here, but it's an important topic, is that no one can know for sure what's going to be a winner. If you find someone who tells you that, they're lying. If I were to sit here and say, hey, I'm going to get you bangers all day, like, look, I'm going to try. Our ads are going to look great. They're going to seem like they will perform. But again, there's a huge luck component. It is a toy market on Facebook. There are all these other competitors that you're up against. There are all these factors that are out of your control. Maybe it was super sunny when you launched that ad and you didn't get enough spend in the first day and it's never going to work, but it should have been a winner. If it was a cold day, you would have got a scaling, disproportionate winner, right? You can't know these things. So don't listen to anyone who tells you they know these things. Try and train your taste on your own and use your own experience if you can. Because
fantastic advice.
We're all liars out here.
we're at least we're guessing, and then the ones of us who say that we know, we're liars. Yeah, absolutely. And marketers are the worst for that. Marketers are absolutely the worst. Okay, before I let you go, can you leave our audience with one new tool they should check out?
Well, I will disclose bias and say you should check out AirPost AI if you are able to afford to, because I helped build this awesome video ad generator. That would be my top rec. In terms of things that I'm currently using a lot, I feel like this strange AI advocate / Luddite where I have mostly relied on the foundational models, and I have tested just about every app in the ad space that has come out. If I have not, and you don't see my email in your user signups from day one, please DM me if you watch this, and I will test your software. But I have not been super impressed with anything that's come out in our space yet. I think a lot of folks are trying, but the challenge is that the APIs are fairly easy to work with, and most of the apps that are just wrappers on top of the API, there's no one really doing anything that significantly changes the process. So you might as well just, as I said earlier, like jump on a Lovable, go into Claude Code and build your own connection. And by the way, really easy to do that. They all understand how to interact with the API. You can say, hey, build me something that integrates with ChatGPT's API, and I want to access and build me a front end, and I want to be able to make 20 ads at the same time. Super easy to do that. And if it fails, this is a pro tip. Go to the documentation page for the API, copy, paste, drop it into the prompt, and then ask you to do it again. It's probably just a little outdated.
I successfully built an entire app within Airtable and using ChatGPT, and deployed it through Python and Heroku and stuff that I know nothing about. but I just had the LLM just like tell me what to do. And then I would just, this happened. Well, I'll do this. Oh, here's an error. Okay, well, then do this. Well, here's the API. Oh, then do this. And then by the end, it worked. I'm like, I did, but I didn't make it. Like the AI used me as a vessel to create a new form of application, basically.
Well, if you read any of the great creatives of our time, and you look back at all of their notes, and like a lot of these folks had journals and things, like Da Vinci, for example, all of them talk about letting the creative spirit flow through them, and that they were just a vessel for creativity. And oftentimes they're talking about God. But I think in our current world, in some ways it does feel like you're letting the AI speak through you. So be a good conduit and develop your taste and individuality, and be differentiated enough that the things that you produce together are good. That's what I would advise.
That's sage advice from the wise Brett Friedman. Brett, where can people find out more about you and the Creative Strategy Agency?
Yeah, so if you go to thecreativestrategyagency.com, I know it's a mouthful, but it should be easy to remember. And I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So the important thing to remember is there's a G middle initial in my name, Brett G. Friedman, because as you will find out, if you don't put that there are hundreds, possibly thousands of Brett Friedmans.
They're imposters.
I'm the real one, though. Most of them are lawyers.
You should change your handle to The Real Brett Friedman.
That's good. I got to get that domain, The Real Brett Friedman.
Well, as always, it's been a pleasure, Mr. 2 episodes. You can put that in your LinkedIn headline as well. 2 episodes on the Agency Uplift podcast. Anyway, we'll see you on the 3rd one down the road, perhaps.
Thanks, Sean. This has been a pleasure.
Take care.